Hey, welcome back, my friend. My name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Husband, Father, Leader podcast. In 2009, I got my first leadership position at work. I went from firefighter to lieutenant, and it was quite the jump. I had 9 years on the job, and it was the first time I was in charge of people. And since 2009, I've steadily worked my way up the rank, and I currently hold the position of captain in the fire service. And I also have had other leadership positions, whether that's church or organizations or school. I also teach at the fire academy. I've moved up there. And I've found that as a leader, I have developed a certain set of skills. I've developed a certain set of techniques and practices. And I found it very interesting when I've taken what I've learned in leadership in a professional setting and then tried to incorporate that into my role as a husband and my role as a father. And so I'm here to break down the things that I try to do that I've learned as a leader. And there's a few things that I think are really important that we do not take from work, because your family is not your employees. Your family are not your subordinates. Your family is not, I don't want to say not your friends, but it's a different way of thinking, a different way of interacting. And I think sometimes as men, we find something that works and we try to execute that system or those findings or that way of leadership everywhere, and it's just not successful. So the first thing that has helped me just immensely is the idea of total accountability, or as Jocko would say, extreme ownership. That when I look at my family and I look at the success and failures, that I try to take the failures of my family, whether that's financial, whether it's my kids messing up, and really see where was I responsible for this. And I intellectually know that I am not responsible for everything my kids do. They're going to make decisions that I didn't want. But when I go back to the honesty of how can I take ownership over that as their parent, there's so much that I could do that could help them. For instance, if they were faced with a decision and they made a choice that I feel was poor, I ask myself, have I ever put them in that situation and talked them through what they would do? I was with, we track our kids on Life 360. And I remember one time my son, and I thought he was driving with my daughter, was going like 90 miles an hour. And he had just gotten his driver's license. And we have made it an effort to not consciously go out and say, hey, we're tracking you. We want them to feel like they can go out into the world and we're not constantly looking at them. But our phones notified us that they're going 90 miles an hour. So I called my son, or my wife called my son. She said, Bud, you're speeding, slow down. You have your sister with you. It's very irresponsible. And he said, I'm sorry. I'm following somebody somewhere and they're speeding, and his sister, our daughter, was with the other person. He said, I'm just trying to keep up. Now we did two bad things, because now he's driving and talking on the phone at the same time. And I realized that I hadn't given them the opportunity to game plan. What do I do if you're going somewhere and the person that you're following is speeding? I never thought that. That's something that never crossed my mind. I could have given them some options. Levi, when you're with your sister, she needs to ride with you. And if somebody is leaving you, you need to call them and ask where you're going, and then slow down, have someone else put it in your phone, and you go the speed limit, because that's important. Speeding is dangerous. And so while I am upset that they were both speeding, and we talked to the person that my daughter was with, that, hey, if you want to ride with my family, we ask that you don't speed. That's just something that's important to us, because we like our kids alive and not crashed. But I realized that because taking extreme ownership is something that I've tried to do at work, that translated really well. I remember one time we had we thought it was a house fire. We came in, the house was covered in smoke. We stretched a line to the door. The lieutenant said, I'm going to go around back and see if I find another way in. The firefighter was very convinced this house was on fire. He tried to open the front glass door. It wouldn't work, so he broke it, reached in, opened, and went in. We found two old people who had just set their first fire for the year in their stove. And it was just smoking. It was just low-lying smoke, and their house wasn't on fire. They had their TV set up to 100 because they had taken out their hearing aids and couldn't hear us banging on the door, and he had smashed their door. And the homeowner was super upset, started yelling at them, And because I have decided to take extreme ownership, I told the homeowner, "I'm sorry, sir, we will pay for this. This is the number you call to get this started." The firefighter was very apologetic. He said, "Cap, I'm so sorry I did that." I'm like, "Wait, did you think their house was on fire?" "Yeah." "Did you try another way?" He's like, "Yeah, I tried to get in." I'm like, "Dude, break the door every time." I wanted him to be aggressive. Like I want my son to go out into the world and do things. And then when they mess up, I want to try to figure out where it is in my life that I failed them to give them enough information, training. And that's been something very good that I've carried over. When people at work have failed, we are an SOP and SOG driven organizations. We do things by the book for the most part. We have guidelines when it comes to like emergencies, because you just can't have policies that are written in stone. And I've had guys that are my friends have failed to live up to the policies or the guidelines that we've established. And when that happens, there's a process of discipline. You call them into your office, you let them say, "Hey, you failed this," you read what they failed, and then you have them sign something saying that they understand that they failed and that this is the path going forward. And you have those tough conversations. I realized that in my professional life, I failed when I failed to have the tough conversations and I didn't correct the actions sooner. And I found that can carry over very well into your wife, maybe not your wife, for your kids at least. You set a standard. We don't lie. We don't steal. We don't do these things. And then when they fail to do that, when they lie or they cheat or they do something, I want you to attack the problem, the standard that they violated, not the person. I think it's so important that you maintain their humanity, that you maintain the love you have for that individual, whether it's an employee or it's your family member, and that you just addressed the problem that they had, not them. You are addressing the problem, not them. When you did this, you violated a family core belief that we don't lie, that we don't steal, that we don't name the thing that we don't do. And that has been so, so helpful. And in order to do that, though, you have to set clear standards. At work, it's pretty straightforward. We have policies and guidelines. We do this, this, and this. And I think it's important for your family as the man of the house. I know that sounds chauvinistic, but I am of the belief that a husband should lead their family. And all that means is you make the really hard decisions and you take responsibility for it. It doesn't mean you're the boss. It just means you're in a leadership position. And like when it comes to you and your wife, you're 51, she's 49, because someone has to be a tiebreaker when you have this 50-50 relationship. It just doesn't work. You can butt heads. So exert your authority, if you want to use that word, but set the standard. Have the conversations with your family from when they're little. What is acceptable in your life? What is acceptable on a day-to-day basis? And then when that just people don't live up to it, and it's okay, right? That happens quite a bit when people don't live up to your standards and your expectations, then you can have the conversation, but definitely have the conversations. Conflict is not bad. Conflict postponed becomes tragedy. Conflict postponed becomes something huge. Have the tough conversations based on clear standards that you've set in your life. And I think you'll find out it works really well. How do you interact with your family when you've messed up? And this is something that's very hard. And it's something that at work, I struggle with to do it right, is that you are going to have standards. I talk about setting standards. I talk about taking extreme ownership, and you're going to mess up. You're going to get mad and you're going to yell. You're going to, I don't know what it is. You lied to the police officer about where you were going to try to get out of a ticket, and your kids saw you. And you looked in the back seat and you saw that look in their eyes like, my dad's a liar. He said we don't lie. That's a tough position to be in. At work, we have something called the after action review. When we have a fire, we get done, we write our reports up, and then we meet afterwards and we talk about it. One of the first things I lead with at this fire or at this emergency, this is what I wish I could have done better. And I go into the things that I failed. I wish I would have communicated better. I didn't understand when you said this. I wasn't clear when I said this. I think we took too long to change our tactics. I start off with where I failed. I think that's important. I think when you are trying to teach your kids to be good, ethical, moral people, when you fail, you need to own that. When I got pulled over by the police officer, I got nervous and I made a poor decision that doesn't line up with my values, doesn't line up with the values of of our family, and let them know I messed up. That's okay. I think it's important that we have these intentional resets in our life and give yourself just a chance to reflect. For me, it's hunting and it's going for walks. I hunt in the spring and I hunt in the fall, and those 2 to 10 days, however long I'm gone, really give me a chance to stop and reflect and to see where I'm at and to know when I come back to my wife and family, my kids, that I've reset and I'm going to have that conversation. You know what? Being healthy has been an important standard in my life, and I haven't met those standards. I have been eating junk food. I've gained 10 pounds, and I've reset. I'm going to do better. Your family will get so much out of that situation where you have some self-reflection. I think that is so important. So these are places where it's important. Extreme ownership, separating the process or the problem from the person, and then, setting clear standards and then letting them know when you've messed up. What doesn't work? And I think it's going to be very different for everybody, what you expect. I work in a male-dominated field, and we speak sarcasm and insults as if it were our first language. I don't believe that should be something that you bring home to your kids. Now, I think there's room for joking, and I'm not always super serious with my kids. But one thing, at least for my girls, I will never insult or make fun of the way they look. I will never tease them about the way they're dressed. As the man that they love, hopefully most in this world, I want them to know that a man is a safe place. Where at work, I am going to insult my friend for anything, and that's just the way we communicate. It's fun. Everybody does it. And with my son, I feel like it's slightly different, but even then, I'm very hesitant for anything that can make them feel bad. They're going to get knocked down enough in this world that they don't need to get that from their dad. And I understand that everybody has different relationships, and you might have a tongue-in-cheek relationship with your kids, but I'm not going to do it. I don't do that with my wife. I'm never going to tease my wife about, like gaining a few pounds, or I just don't think she needs to hear that from me. It works at work. It does not work at home. The other thing that I need to realize, and I'm definitely preaching to the choir here, is that not every situation is a situation at work. Meaning, like when I'm at home, most things aren't emergencies. And the way I interact with people in emergencies is not the same as when I interact with my family. Even in an emergency, I can't demand that they do something. At work, I give orders. I literally tell someone, do this. I don't say, would you please do this? I say, do this now. This is the time period. And I make things happen. I've realized that's a complete disaster at work or at home. You might be in a situation where you're in charge of hundreds or maybe even thousands of people. They're being paid to be there. There's big money on the line. There's big stress on the line. Do not bring that home. If you're an accountant and your kids are not good at math, don't bring your accountant brain. Bring your dad brain. Whatever the thing is that you're good at, realize that your interactions with your kids when you get home shouldn't be the same. Your job isn't always to teach your kids every little moral thing that they could ever know. It could be that just to be likable, and that they will see what's right and what's good and what's great about this world by the way you act, not by what you tell them. And sometimes, especially when you're in a leadership role, you spend most of your day educating people and teaching people. My role at the Fire Academy, I spend 8 hours talking and educating because that's what they're there for. Specific topic, specific outcome. I'm teaching them specific knowledge. When I come home, if you're constantly, well, you could do this better. This could be better. You could have done this. Man, your kids don't need that. They need to watch you love their mom. They need to watch you be respectful. They need to watch you be healthy. They'll get it. They'll pick it up. They spend too much time with you to have you drilling into their head. Every single moment is a teaching moment. Now, should you teach your kids? Absolutely. I've had whole podcasts where there's skills that you should teach your kids. I think that's important. But I don't think it should be all the time. You shouldn't be constantly looking for like the moral to the story. And as your kids go from preteen to teen and to adulthood, that should be changing on how you guide and direct them. In their teenage years, they might not want to hear anything from you. Your ability to actually teach them something could be almost zero in that teenage world, but they're going to watch you and they're going to learn from you. by watching you. Could you teach them something like hands-on? Yeah, there's hands-on skills. My daughter's driving and she didn't understand how the brakes worked on the car. She asked a very good question. So is it stopping the brakes and then they're skidding? And I had to explain the difference between a tire and a wheel and how most wheels have disc brakes and the discs get squeezed by the brake. So I did have a chance to teach her something, but I'm not currently going to be teaching her how to clean her room. I'm going to have a clean room. I'm going to hope that she cleans her room, but that's not a fight I'm going to pick. Now, if this is at work, we live at work at the station. We expect everyone to have clean rooms. We literally clean almost the whole station every day. That's something I'm going to enforce. It's a standard, it's a policy, it's a procedure. It's an enforcement as my role as a leader. That's not my role as a leader at home. It's not my job to tell my wife how she folded the laundry or how she put away the dishes. That's not the life you want to live. Don't bring your leadership responsibilities home with you. Be the husband, be the father, be the leader in your house, but lead from love. Lead as a way of showing an example, not this rule following SOP, SOB, SOP, SOG. You don't want to be SOB either. Don't be that guy. Be a good dad, be a good father, or a good husband. And lead with love, lead with accountability, set some standards. That's important. Set some standards, things that we don't violate, but do and show more than you do. I think that's what I'm getting at. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast. I would love a review. If you could just write down a review. The name is changing. You should see the title has changed. I'll do 2 more episodes with the logo the same, and they'll be switching to a new logo. I'm excited about the new podcast, the new name of it, I should say. I'm so thankful that you've been here listening for the past 3 years. My name is Danny Dumas, and I will talk to you later. Bye.